The Cursed Book. More than 60 forbidden stories that YouTube wouldn't let the channel publish. Link in the comments. Buy it now. The old cemetery lay in a shadowy valley, a place shrouded in legends whisper from generation to generation. Its iron gates, rusted and twisted, creak ominously when touched, a sound that sent shivers down the spine of anyone who dared to approach. The rules posted on the gate were barely readable, scrawled in faded letters on a decrepit parchment. Rule 1. Do not enter after dusk. The words were etched into the stone pillar next to the gate, but they seemed to glow with an eerie, malevolent energy as the sun set. Many had ignored this rule, only to disappear without a trace, leaving behind nothing but their frightened whispers carried away by the wind. On nights when the moon was full, the cemetery's shadows seemed to stretch and writhe with a life of their own. Those who ventured in after dark spoke of seeing figures moving between the tombstones, silent, ghostly shapes that seemed to watch with cold, unfeeling eyes. But to mock the dead was to invite their ire. Stories circulated about those who had suffered gruesome fates after uttering a disrespectful word, their bodies found twisted and contorted in unimaginable agony. The cemetery was notorious for its chilling atmosphere. The air was thick with an unnatural stillness, broken only by the occasional rustle of leaves or the distant howl of a wolf. But those who listened closely could hear whispers, soft, sibilant voices that seemed to come from nowhere and everywhere at once. Rule 3. Leave offerings at the crossroads. This peculiar rule was sometimes overlooked by visitors who thought it superstitious nonsense. However, those who failed to adhere to it reported being followed by unseen entities, their every step shadowed by an unsettling presence that never left them. The crossroads in the cemetery were said to be particularly dangerous. It was there that the veil between worlds was thinnest, and the restless souls of the dead were most active. The soil at the crossroads was always damp and blackened, as if it had been soaked in something far more sinister than rain. Rule 4. Do not touch the headstones. The headstones in the cemetery were covered in an eerie, moss-like substance that seemed to pulsate with a malevolent energy. Those who had touched them reported seeing visions of the dead reaching out for them, their eyes filled with a hunger that was both primal and terrifying. A story was often told about a group of teenagers who, daring each other to break the rules, had touched the headstones in a fit of bravado. They were never seen again. Some claimed that their screams could still be heard on quiet nights, a haunting echo that sent chills through those who dared to listen. Rule 5. Do not disturb the graves. This rule seemed simple enough, but disturbing the graves was an invitation to the unknown. Grave robbers who had ignored this rule were found with their eyes wide open in terror, their bodies frozen in expressions of sheer and imaginable horror. The cemetery was also known for its labyrinthine layout, with paths that twisted and turned unpredictably. Those who entered often found themselves lost, the paths shifting as if the cemetery itself were alive, a malevolent force that delighted in trapping intruders in its dark embrace. The underbrush was thick and tangled, and the air grew colder as one strayed further from the well-trodden paths. Rumors spoke of ancient spirits that guarded the cemetery's hidden sections, spirits that were vengeful and unforgiving. Anyone who strayed too far from the path would often hear the rustling of leaves and see eyes glinting from the darkness watching with a predatory gaze. Rule 7. Never enter the catacombs. The catacombs beneath the cemetery were a maze of dark corridors and ancient tombs, and legends said that they were home to something far worse than mere spirits. Those who had ventured into the catacombs were never heard from again, their fate's a mystery that was better left unsolved. The entrance to the catacombs was hidden behind a crumbling mausoleum, and the air round it was thick with an almost palpable sense of dread. The few who had glimpsed the entrance spoke of a cold, suffocating darkness that seemed to reach out and pull them in. Rule 8. Do not stay past midnight. Midnight was the hour when the dead were said to awaken, and the cemetery transformed into a place of unspeakable horror. The veil between the living and the dead was at its thinnest, and the boundary between the two worlds became blurred. At the stroke of midnight, the cemetery would often come alive with unearthly sounds. They were condemned to wander the cemetery forever, their bodies twisted and deformed by the dark bargains they had made. The cemetery was filled with tales of deals gone wrong, of people who had tried to summon spirits or make pacts with otherworldly beings. These individuals were said to have been dragged into the earth, their final screams a chilling reminder of the dangers that lay in breaking the rules. Rule 10. Respect the silence. The cemetery was a place of profound quiet, a silence that was almost deafening in its intensity. Breaking this silence was to invite the wrath of the dead, who would respond with terrifying manifestations that defied explanation. Those who had disrupted the silence spoke of seeing ghostly apparitions and hearing disembodied voices that seemed to come from nowhere. The fear and paranoia that followed were often overwhelming, driving them to the brink of madness. As the years went by, fewer people dared to enter the cemetery. The stories of the rules and the consequences for breaking them became legend, and the cemetery itself grew more desolate, a dark monument to the power of fear and superstition. The once grand gate became even more decrepit, and the cemetery's grounds fell into further disrepair, but the rules remained etched into the stones and whispered on the wind, a haunting reminder of the terror that awaited those who dared to ignore them. Some claim that the cemetery was alive, a sentient entity that fed on the fear of those who entered its bounds. The rules were its way of keeping intruders at bay, a way to ensure that only the bravest or the most foolish would challenge its dark authority. On rare occasions, people would still venture into the cemetery, drawn by the allure of its dark mysteries or the challenge of breaking its rules. They would enter with bravado, only to disappear into the night, leaving behind only the echo of their screams and the faintest traces of their presence. The cemetery stood as a stark reminder of the unknown and the unknowable. Its rules were not merely guidelines, but warnings, etched in stone and whispered in the darkness, a testament to the power of fear and the consequences of ignoring it. As the years passed, the cemetery became a place of legend, its dark reputation growing with each passing tale. It was a place that few dared to enter, and fewer still returned from, a testament to the power of the unknown and the consequences of breaking the rules. Those who had once dared to enter and survive spoke of the nightmares they had endured, of the darkness that had clung to them long after they had left. The cemetery had a way of marking its visitors, leaving behind a stain that could never truly be washed away. the rules remained a final chilling testament to the cemetery's dark power. They were etched into the very fabric of the place, a warning to all who came near that the price for ignoring them was far greater than anyone could imagine. And so the cemetery continued to stand, a dark monument to fear and superstition. Its rules were a haunting reminder of the dangers that lay within, and its legends grew with each passing year, a testament to the terrifying power of the unknown. Until next time, thank you